One, and we should be good to go. All right. Hello. What is up, YouTube internet land? How are you doing today? It is Julian, aka the Cozy Representative. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm very, very excited today. We've got a special guest in the building for the first time ever on my channel. The man, the myth, the emo legend. You might know him. You might have seen him playing on stage with a little band called Terrible Things. You might have saw him with an act called The Color Fred. Maybe you might know him from a band called Breaking Pangaea. Some of y'all might know of a small little indie band that existed at one point called Taking Back Sunday. We're gonna get into all that, but today we have Mr. Fred Mascherino, everybody.
Hey, what's up, man? Great to be here. Really nice to meet you, and I was excited to do this one, so thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man. I am very excited to have you here. It's awesome because I don't know. I was thinking if I should start this off this way or not, but I kind of wanted to just get this out of the way. Not to nerd out on you or whatever, but I first started listening to the band Taking Back Sunday back in 2006.
Yep.
I was pretty young at the time. I was like maybe around 12 years old-ish. And I saw the Make Damn Sure video on MTV. And I was kind of like in that wave of kids, like just getting into bands like Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance and that sort of thing. And then I saw you guys, and then I got into the Louder Now album, and then went back and like pretty much was like worshipped Taking Back Sunday whenever I was in high school. And then I was always a big...
They were good years, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I was always a big fan of you. Not even just saying that. I had gotten into the band right around the time that you had left, and then I bought Bend to Break album when it came out, and like followed you through The Color Fred, and then Terrible Things, and then I've like gone back and listened to Breaking Pangaea and stuff. So it's cool to talk to you because it's this weird thing where I don't know, I've been such a fan of your music for a long time that it feels like I've talked to you before, if that makes sense. I don't know if you have that with like other people.
I do. I'm always nervous to meet people that I listen to because I'm a huge music fan myself. I just love listening to music. I'm obsessed with it, like the way you are.
Totally.
And I've met a few of those people that I listened to growing up, and it was hard for me, and I almost never want to again because I feel like a fool, But
I know
you don't
what you
sound
mean.
like a fool at all. I'm just
saying. That's actually one thing that I wanted to bring up as far as like why I'm excited to talk to you specifically is because for those who don't know, anyone watching this, you have been doing like YouTube videos on your YouTube channel lately, which is The Color Fred, I believe, on YouTube.
Yeah, that's the channel, The Color Fred. Yep. And
yeah,
with the In the Shed with Fred show and all the things surrounding that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been watching a lot of your videos, and I'm excited to talk to you because I kind of want to talk about, just everything you've been through and kind of your views on sort of just the evolution of the, the emo, pop punk, post-hardcore wave you were a part of, like from someone who kind of been there and lived through that. But I'm also excited to talk to you because you don't seem like a guy who like has some sort of, like weird rock star complex, like revisionist history kind of view on a lot of that stuff. Like I feel like a lot of those guys who were involved in like emo and stuff at the time, they like a lot of them, I don't know, they, you know what I mean? Some of them.
I do. I'm comfortable with that history, and I'm comfortable in my own skin, I guess you'd say. So and not that anyone else isn't, but like they don't like to look at it as like they don't want to look at themselves as retro. And it's tough. We'll get into that, but I embrace it. I embrace that the fans still listen to the music. And I'm totally, I make new music and I want everyone to listen to it. But if they like my old music the best, what am I gonna, I'll play it all. I don't care.
I hear you. That's a very level-headed way of looking at it, because there's definitely people out there who, like, I don't know, are either ashamed in some way, it seems like, of the whole emo thing or whatever, you know, it meant to them at the time, or you know, and some people, they get kind of to a certain level of fame at some point, and then they're almost kind of never quite the same after that, and they, you know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I know. It was, I mean, it was a very short period of time that we were all on top of the world. And then circa 2011, no one was anymore, you know?
Right.
And I always saw it as, you know, I'm you know, a bit older than you, so I remember the late 80s hair metal bands.
Right.
And I saw how they, you know, how, like, when Nirvana came out, not one of those bands could barely tour, because they're like, we don't want you, you know?
Yeah.
And that happened for a second, and I think it jaded some of us.
Yeah, I definitely view, and this is actually a good segue. So I view a lot of the 2000s emo stuff as kind of similar to the grunge movement in certain ways, and I want to get into that later, for sure. But first, since you brought it up, I actually do want to start off talking a little bit now, do a little bit of the old chronological order thing, as they say.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to get into first, because this is kind of a thing that a lot of people I don't think really know about you, unless they're, like, super into your whole career or whatever. But you're, like, you come from the 90s, man. You're, like, originally like a 90s rocker, right? With, like, Brody,
yes.
Right?
Oh yeah, no, 100%, man. I graduated in '92, and I was touring in the '90s, and playing all the time.
You graduated high school in '92?
High school, yeah. And I went to college for guitar. Actually, I got a jazz degree.
Oh wow, nice.
And I was playing in Brody that whole time. And then when college ended, I think it was '97. I went on my first tour with Brody across country. We had built up a little following, and a very small. The scene was just tiny at that time.
Yeah. What was kind of the? I guess I wanted to get into of that time period when you were in Brody, and it was, you know, the 90s, and you were out of high school. What were, I guess, the bands that you were? I know you have a bit of like I know you're into Van Halen and like 80s.
Yeah. So yeah, and that
was stuff.
Yeah, that's more my childhood, you know, like Star Wars era, you know, like little kid. But yeah, by high school I was into you know, Dinosaur Jr., The Descendants, Fugazi.
Right on.
And then there were some bands that sort of didn't stick around as long that people may not know about, but Shudder to Think was a DC band I really loved. They
never heard of them.
Yeah, they influenced like Sunny Day Real Estate, like some really early emo stuff. Sunny Day, of course, by the mid '90s was my favorite band ever.
Right on. Okay.
And but there was also a band, Sam I Am, from California.
Yeah.
They they would almost sound like pop punk at this point, but there was a lot of dynamics to the music. So they would have like these emo parts where it starts out really quiet and then crash in. They were a huge influence on me in the early '90s.
How would you find these bands at the time, like a band like Dinosaur Jr.?
So,
like, what clued you into that? Because obviously there's no, you know, it's not really internet yet or whatever.
There was not at all. And so it was all skateboarding videos back then.
Oh wow!
So if you like it wasn't like today. Skaters back then, there was like 3 skaters at my high school, you know, like, and I had a skateboard and skated, but I was terrible. I was always into guitar, but I would go to the skate there were no skate parks. We would go to a parking lot after the store closes and ollie up onto the curb and try to take the parking blocks and put them in different ways so we could rail slide them. And
yeah, totally. Teenage ne'er-do-well business going on.
Yeah,
right?
That was, yeah. And so these skateboard videos that would come out would have Fugazi on it or Dinosaur Jr. And you'd be like, man. And Dinosaur Jr. had songs where like the guy would just like in the middle of the song, you would hear this noise, and it was him picking up his reverb on his on his amp and dropping his amp so that it made a crashing noise. And
oh my God.
It was just like no one on the radio would think to do that. So we just thought it was amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I could imagine that being, mind-blowing at the time. If you're around high school age and you're hearing like, stuff like that you never thought was even possible to hear a band do on a record, right?
Right. It was just like they didn't care, and we love that about it. It was just like, dude, they're doing whatever the hell they want. There was no record label that was, like the ones Van Halen or Queen were on. It was like it was SST Records was a big one that had we liked Bad Brains. There was a band called Fire Hose that came from the Minutemen.
Right.
So that's really old stuff. And a lot of my friends were about 3 years older than me because I couldn't find anyone my age that like could put together a band when I was only in 9th grade. So I played with guys in college by the time I was toward the end of high school. So
nice. Yeah, right on. So was this so you were getting into this stuff before like Nirvana hit, right?
Yeah, like my friends listened to Nirvana's first record like 2 years before like Nevermind came out. We knew about them. Mm-hmm. It was like their favorite band. They'd wear the shirts and be like, "Oh, what's that band?" And I had them on like mixtapes from a girlfriend, and and I remember Nevermind coming out and hearing them. My girlfriend actually played me the opening to Smells Like Teen Spirit over the phone. She's like, listen to this. This is going to get huge.
That's awesome.
Like, it's grunge. It's not like, it's not going to get big. Like Poison's on MTV, not this crap.
Right. Yeah. Having no concept that like, well, okay, this is going to be the thing that, I guess changes everything. Yeah. And were Nirvana like a big band for you, or was it like was it a kind of thing where like you were like, I was already into this kind of indie like or whatever you want to call it, punk?
Yeah, it was a little bit like once you're out of high school and a new band comes out, you're kind of like, psh, like I don't like so like I always said that I respected them, and I definitely like some of their songs, but totally. And like when I was in Taking Back Sunday, that was Adam's favorite band ever. But so it was a little bit younger people that really made that popular, right? Because like by then the average Joe, like my friend who wasn't even into music was like, dude, have you heard this record? And I was like, come on, man. I listened to underground stuff. So,
exactly.
Not to say I was too cool, but that's how, I was 18, so I probably did think I was too cool.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know what you mean. So then I guess going from there to you being in Brody, when you were college age, now what like scene were you in? You're in Philly, right?
Yeah. Pennsylvania? Well, I went to Temple, which is in Philly, in North Philly, and I that's all the guys that were in the band I met at that time. Some of them would be friends I knew from high school, but yeah, I'm in between Philly and Lancaster, PA, is where I grew up, in a place called Coatesville, which is I'm in Westchester, but gotcha. We're like 40 minutes from Philly. So totally. We always went to the shows in Philly, and occasionally there would be shows out in our area.
Right. What kind of bands would Brody play with?
So we wouldn't really get to open for big bands very often. That wasn't hard to get. But
Yeah.
we would play with just local shows, fire halls. We would sometimes play bars because when I was in college, I could get a lot of people to come to those. But the big thing we did was we went up to Long Island, and Eddie Reyes from Taking Back Sunday, he had a band called Clockwise.
Yes, right.
And those guys would throw shows and 300 kids would come. You know, we would play Philly and like 50 people would be there. But we'd go to up there and they'd have like these fire hall shows at like, you know, Knights of Columbus or something. And there would be just kids. It would be like nearly sold out, and there would be, you know, 5 Long Island bands playing, and then they would stick us on a pretty good slot because they were kind of fans of us. We had this guy around here. He was like our age. He was a kid, but he graduated high school and put a studio in his basement, and we would record there. You know, he barely knew how to use the equipment. I mean, it was not the best recordings. He's much better engineer now, but
totally, especially back then, it's like, you know, how many resources do you really have for that with your, you know, local guy recording stuff or whatever?
No, I mean, it was great at the time. I actually have the board from his studio in my studio now. So
no shit, really?
It like I stay close to my roots.
That's awesome.
but so that was like a label, a punk label, and we put out a 7-inch record with them, and so people would listen to that. We actually did "Boys of Summer," the Don Henley song, on our 7-inch. Which was distributed to record stores.
Wow.
And I always wanted to ask Chris Rowe from Atari if he ever heard our version, because it was years before his version.
Yeah, right. And, man.
And I think he owned a record store at the time. So I was very always kind of like, not that was the best idea ever. I mean, it worked for him.
It worked for him.
I didn't want to get famous doing that, but
no,
I just wondered if, you know.
Right. I wonder, does the Brody version of that sound any similar at all to the Atari's version, or? It's like
a punk rock version of it. Ours is a bit faster, and we didn't get to go to, you know, that was produced by Lou Giordano, who did Where You Want to Be.
Sure,
and The Color Fred. And I asked him about it, and he wouldn't have it. He's like, this sounds nothing like our version. I'm like, well, it's recorded in a basement, first off. But
right. So, I mean, you could say technically Brody did it first. Technically. Even if you did.
Yeah.
You did.
It came out on vinyl, and it was distributed nationwide. So.
That's funny, man.
And you can still hear that on Bandcamp, by the way.
Wow, yeah. I watched I found a video on YouTube of Brody playing live, and you had very, very long hair, and it was a trip, man. It was a trip to kind of, you know, I feel like your kind of career has been so interesting because, and obviously, you know, I don't want to get too into this now because we're kind of go boom, boom, boom. But it's just interesting because you kind of, you're just so associated with like a very specific niche genre that exploded in like the mid 2000s. Like to the surface level, that's what people like, you know, associate you with, which, you know, and like you understand why that is, but it's just like, I'm watching this video of you playing, you know, at this like show in like 1994, which is like probably the year that a lot of the bands that Taking Back Sunday were touring with were like born in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Or whatever, maybe not that young, but you know what I mean?
No, but yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting that you, I don't know, that you were in the game for a lot longer before Taking Back Sunday, which I don't think a lot of people really realize or think about. Cause you know, I'm a musician. I've played in bands, played in a bunch of bands like throughout high school and kind of my like early adult life or whatever. And I actually kind of stopped doing that recently because it was like, I just felt like I was, I don't know, kind of not, it wasn't that I was getting nowhere with it, but it was the thing where I would be in a band for a few years, things would be great, and then every band I was in just kept falling apart after like a few years, right? Like, member stuff happens and whatever, and you start, like, I felt like I was constantly working my way up and then had nothing to show for it. So I recently was like, you know what? So just with that in my head, I'm like, the fact that you were like, oh
yeah, I'll tell you an anecdote is when Nirvana did get big, you know, I was in a band in high school for 3 years called Stickman, and we played New York City. We played I was playing bars when I was 17, and the guy's like, "You're 21, right?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm 17," and they let me play anyway. So,
yeah, they give you like a milk.
Yeah. So I yeah, I mean, honestly, like, it was insane, but you know, then Nirvana hit, and everyone who I knew, my cousins and my uncles, were like, "Dude, this is your time. Like, you got to get in. Like, this is the underground making it." And and I was like, "Nah, it's not quite what I do. Like, I kind of do this other thing. I like Jawbreaker and Sunny Day Real Estate, and I'm not there yet." And and so then the Foo Fighters got big, like around the late 90s, and everyone's like, "Now this sounds exactly like what you do. You need to, this is your chance." I said, I'm just not in that position right now, you know?
Yeah, right.
And then finally, you know, the third wave was, you know, but we'll get to that. But
yeah, we'll get to
that. But that kept happening throughout my life of like, you know, because I'm just, in the meantime, I'm working at the clubs in town, like, painting over graffiti in the bathrooms, you know, just like making $5 an hour or whatever, and just like, you know, not making it, you know. So.
Right. Did you ever have like any situations where like I don't know if, like, I'll just use Brody as an example, but say you're in Brody and like the bass player leaves and then like joins a bigger band hypothetically, and you're like, fuck, or whatever, like you're just like, you're grinding along, but you're watching people, or not even in your band, but in the scene, like watching bands get big, and you're like, no, that's like kind of what I want, but I don't want to like just, you know. So
at that time in Brody, we had this drummer named Chuck Treese, who's pretty well known. He's a session guy, and he's played with even like Pearl Jam and Bad Brains, and he's a sick musician. And he was a little older than us, and he honestly mentored me and taught me a lot. But he was playing in another band with this other guy my age, and we were kind of competing to keep him as our drummer. Like, man, stop playing with that guy. You got to play with my band, you know. And we're competing, and at least in my head, but that guy was in the other band was Ben Kenny, who is currently, for the past 15 years, been the bass player of Incubus.
Whoa!
So like I was finishing up college with my jazz degree, and he went on tour playing bass for the Roots, who are a Philly band.
Whoa, no way!
And I was like so jealous, and I told my mom, like, I gotta drop out of school and go on tour. Like, this guy's doing all this stuff. And it was like, well, I'll just finish. And so the day after I graduated college, Brody left on our first tour. So within a week, we went out. And so I was just dying, you know, and school was great because it taught me a lot about everything with my songwriting and producing and everything. So it's paying off now, honestly, but at the time, I just wanted, I saw my friends making it, and like, gosh, like, get me out there. You know?
Exactly, because it's funny, because I've had like similar experiences to that. I mean, no one I knew was playing in Incubus now, but on sort of a smaller level, like in just the local scene I was in, like, you know, you kind of like, you almost, as a musician, you don't want to be jealous of other people's accomplishments, because at the end of the day, you're like, look, that's awesome for them. I want to be happy for them. But when you're still in that level where you're just like grinding, playing like shitty shows and like things aren't really, you know, you're not making any money. You're like touring and like you know, like, and then you watch something happen to somebody and in the back, you're like happy for them. But that's one of the I guess the moments that I've had where I've been like, man, like what am I doing? Like this guy is doing this. Like,
no,
is
I know
something like that ever gonna happen for me or what? Like,
no, I had an uncle tell me at Christmas one year, like, I was having a kid. I had my first kid, and he's like, isn't it time to like give it up and maybe grow up?
Yeah.
I was like, not yet. I can't do it yet.
Yeah. Which that brings me to what I want to talk about next, which is the band Breaking Pangaea. If you want to segue a little bit into the early 2000s now, and kind of get into that band, because I have a few kind of different questions about this band and this era. And I guess the first question that I have is kind of the same thing that I asked about Brody, but like, I know that once the early 2000s rolled around, you had bands like, it was kind of like the emo thing was coming, right? You had Saves the Day, and like Lifetime, which kind of bled into that.
Yep.
Even literally, Taking Back Sunday were coming out on Thursday. Like the first My Chemical Romance record, like all that stuff was like budding, right?
It was simmering. Yeah. I mean, I would play. Well, yeah, that was when Breaking Pangaea. Like, to be honest, like, so Lifetime came first. Brody played a bar with, like a matinee show, all ages, with Lifetime, and in Philly. And just to give you an example, and I would say there were 60 people there or less. Like it was kind of a sucky show, honestly. And
sucky at the time, but like looking back now, it's like, whoo.
No, I know.
Imagine that.
Yeah, we had fun, but like
totally.
No one there was like thinking like because people didn't really know Lifetime yet. They honestly got famous after they broke up, which.
They were one of those
saddest
bands,
thing that you never want to happen. But
exactly, and it's funny too with that band. I kind of look at it almost as like kind of in my head. I want to know what you think of this, because this is kind of how I view, I guess, like the sort of around that time period, the emo development, as in the like. Where it first came from and then who took it to the next level. In my head, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be totally wrong about this, but the way I see it is you had Lifetime come out. That wasn't the only band. There was like Jawbreaker and stuff like that happening, but I really view it as like Lifetime happened, and then like, they weren't like a huge band when they were a band, but
no.
The next thing that happened after that, I think, was Saves the Day, which if you listen to the first Saves the Day record, it's basically a Lifetime ripoff. Yeah. Not ripoff, it's a great record, but
no, it's great.
It sounds like kids.
They would say it probably themselves.
Yeah. It sounds like high school kids who heard Lifetime and were like, we want to sound like that. And then, the next couple Saves the Day records were like taking that like Lifetime 90s sound and blowing it up to kind of the next level. And then the next band that I think, and this is where I'm like, stop me if I'm wrong on this, but the next big thing, I view it as Tell All Your Friends by Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah.
I think kind of took the groundwork that like Lifetime and Saves the Day had laid down. Tell Your Friends came out. That took it to a whole new level. And then after that, it was Fall Out Boy. And then the whole mainstream explosion. So, am I wrong? But that's kind of the staircase.
Well,
view.
Yeah, for that lineage, like, Taking Back Sunday definitely was getting it from Lifetime.
Yeah,
and more than anything else. I mean, there were certainly a lot of other bands that influenced Taking Back Sunday. To be honest, like. Eddie told me at one time, like Brody was a 2-singer band. So we had a singer, and then I sang and screamed on the side.
Yeah, okay.
And Eddie had a band that had 2 singers as well. Mm-hmm. And he had told me at one time that, he was making a band and he was kind of using Brody as like a little archetype. But he might, not that was, not to take any credit, but like it was, I think I got into Taking Back Sunday more because of Brody than Breaking Pangaea.
Interesting.
And
so
that's because there was a separate lineage where emo split off to more the mathy thing,
right, yeah,
with bands like Braid and their later Hey Mercedes, and then Burning Airlines, like via Jawbox rather than there was Jawbreaker, which had songs, and then there were Jawbox that was very technical. Like every drummer loved Jawbox because they were so technical, playing in 5/8 and whatever. And so
totally.
So Breaking Pangea liked those more technical bands, and like there was Hot Water Music, but like they were huge when before Breaking Pangea, but certainly Lifetime, because those bands like Fall Out Boy and Taking Back Sunday that was their favorite band, was Lifetime.
Yeah, right, totally. I kind of, and we'll get more into this band in a second too, but I kind of view the first Fall Out Boy record as which is now like revered, as or whatever. But I listened to that album, and kind of in the same way where the first Saves the Day album is like a lot like Lifetime, the first Fall Out Boy album to me is like if you took like Through Being Cool by Saves the Day and Tell Your Friends in a blender, and like basically was like, okay, make a pop punk album out of these two albums and make it like accessible, and or I guess maybe it wasn't as accessible yet, but I do think
that like Pete Wentz is an amazing businessman, and he's more so than a musician.
Totally.
And not to take anything away from him, because he was like one of my favorite guys of that era. Like I'm friends with him and everything, but
totally.
Like I feel that he could see things that the music nerds couldn't, and that's why he was successful,
Yeah, man, yeah. And we're gonna get more into that in a second, but
great.
Because that whole going back to Breaking Pangea a little bit, I guess, did you consider that band, because like you were kind of saying, that band was a little bit more on the sort of math rock experimental side of things, which I might be wrong on this, but I feel like was kind of a little bit rare at that time of a genre to be playing, or at least it wasn't. It kind of, in the context of the budding emo stuff that was going on at the time. I guess the main question that I'm asking is like, where did you see Breaking Pangea? Like, where did Breaking Pangea exist within the context of that early 2000s, wave?
Yeah. So
you consider you guys an emo band, or what was it?
So for me, like in the 90s, emo was Sunny Day Real Estate and any band that tried to sound like them. So Mineral. There was also a label called Deep Elm Records, who would put out the Emo Diaries. And there were like dozens of these bands that all were trying to sound like Sunny Day Real Estate.
Sure, right.
And it was like they all kind of had this similar parts. They'd have really good drummers with lots of fills, and twinkly guitar, clean up top, but then low drop D stuff. So
that's like the real emo 90s, like the type of thing that people always get fights about on the internet and whatnot.
So the part that went extinct, So.
the pure form emo.
So as far as rare, I think Breaking Pangea was one of the last bands doing that. Still, we kind of got caught holding the hot potato, because we thought that, our heroes, we wanted to be where they were, and they were like I mentioned Burning Airlines and the Braid guys, and we toured with a band called Elliot that was on great like emo style record from the 90s. False Cathedrals was the Elliott record that you should all listen to, and we got to tour with all those bands. We toured with them, but at the same time, our friends were starting Taking Back Sunday, and they came down to Delaware. We set up a show for them, and they played, and not many people came, and the bands weren't very good in that scene. They weren't technical bands. They were just fans of other bands trying, like the punk thing, kids trying to play, and maybe the bass player couldn't play until he got into the band, but that kind of thing. And then we also, at that time, Breaking Pangaea, we were getting signed to Equal Vision Records.
Right. Because you had an album and an EP out before that, right?
Right. Yeah. And so we put those out with a label that was basically out of a guy's bedroom, and it's just like somebody to handle that for us, but it wasn't any type of marketing, or it wasn't much help. It was just a guy to pay for the CDs to get pressed, and for us to go on tour and not worry about that. And so but when we got to Equal Vision, they had a brand new band, and we were touring already. We were touring about 5 months a year. We had a booking agent that booked, I believe, Midtown and some other bands. So Breaking Pangaea opened for Midtown at this huge show in Philly with thousands of people. And anyway, at that time, Coheed and Cambria had just formed.
Wow.
And only had a song out on a sampler, and they asked if they could go out with Breaking Pangaea as our opener, if you can believe that.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man.
So,
wow.
But I have to say, they were amazing at that time.
Yeah, totally. Wow, that's wild. It's funny how
we sat in basements playing every night to 15 kids, or 50 kids, or in Dayton, Ohio, was like a couple hundred kids, listening to all the songs from Second Stage Turbine Blade. That was a highlight of the Breaking Pangaea era for sure.
Right on. And was that band like, was it like a special kind of thing? Did you guys have like a following? Did it feel like something, like did you guys have, like, maybe you were a smaller band, but the fans that you did have were like super devout kind of thing? Or
so at first there was that transition. Our first show, we opened for the movie Life, and it was a good show. And we would get good shows for a long time, and people like really loved us, I would say. Nice. And if they knew about us, they liked us. Usually we had pockets of the country where we could draw, like I mentioned, Dayton, Ohio, we could draw 300 kids there.
Right.
We did well in Long Island and in obviously Philly. We would go to Florida a lot because that's where our label was. So we did okay. But as this other more poppy thing started to enter, it was pushing us out, I would say. And we went our final tour, not to get to the end of it, but we was opening for Taking Back Sunday to thousands of kids, sold out 2,000 person shows.
I see. And that, I have to ask, because I kind of thought of this too, but kind of going with what you're saying, I know that on the last EP that Breaking Pangaea did, the one on Equal Vision, that one had that song "Worst Part" on it, which is probably like maybe the most popular song at this point, I guess, or whatever.
Yes.
I view that song, I'm not gonna lie, I've never really gotten like too into Breaking Pangaea as a whole. But from what I have heard, that song definitely feels a lot more like poppy, pop rock, catchy than the older, more kind of experimental material. Like the older stuff that you had, it's almost like those are the kind of songs that they take a few listens to kind of get into it. Whereas I view Worst Part as like, it's like, okay, this is very clearly like, it's catchy, it's got a big chorus. Like, was that kind of your reaction to, did that just happen naturally, or was that like...
No. Well, there were two things. One, we had a bass player. We were a three-piece, and everybody in that band was an equal member, like as far as like contributing music. And our bass player was really cool. And he was very like he always bought the CDs the day they came out. So he So he knew, he influenced us a lot. I kind of wrote the stuff, I could write a Beatles song and then we turn it into emo song, whatever.
Totally.
I had the lyrics, I had the chords. You guys put the fancy stuff on, drummer Will Noon.
Yeah,
would
man.
make it interesting, and along with the bass player. So, but on the EP, we actually lost our bass player. He left the band, and so it was me and the drummer. Well, the drummer, Will, he was listening to Brand New and Taking Back Sunday all the time. And we were like, you listen to those young bands, and like that was what he was into.
That's funny.
So he wanted to do something a little more, relevant as he saw it.
Okay, so
and there were a couple songs on that went that direction.
I see. Oh, so that was almost a Will Noon influence kind of thing.
Little,
almost.
I hate to admit it. Yeah.
Because that's another thing. As we wrap up, as we get close to wrapping up the Breaking Pangaea chapter a little bit, that's one thing I kind of thought of, and maybe people also don't realize this, is like you were around your late 20s at this point, right?
Yeah, I already I was married when I started the band. I met my wife when I was like 21 and got married fairly young, and then we had a kid while I was in Breaking Pangaea. And then toward the end of, and so I was in a different place than, Will's still single, and so, but yeah, I was kind of the old man. Like I was 5 years older than those guys, and just kind of had this family the whole time. And toward the end of the band, I found out I was having my second kid, and that was starting to kind of put a lot of pressure on, because we were kind of struggling with where we fit. We weren't getting the tours that we were getting for 2000 through 2003. Now 2003 comes. We did get to Taking Back Sunday tour, and we were supposed to go on tour with Brand New had we not broken up.
Wow.
So I don't know where it could have went. I know that the guys in Thrice were fans of us at that time. So we had friends in high places, but I don't know if we were writing the music that we needed to write.
Dude, it's so funny that you bring that up, because literally my next question was about Breaking Pangaea, was going to be, in an alternate universe where you had never joined Taking Back Sunday for whatever reason, what do you think, like, the evolution of Breaking Pangaea would have been? You know what I mean? Is there any way to tell? I mean,
I think the best guess would be that I'd still be doing it, but I'd be, I would have been working that whole time doing something else, and fitting it in between, with PTO hours.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know. Do you think, because I almost view Breaking Pangaea as like one of those, almost like a band's band. It's like all the bands.
That's what it was. It was, all the bands would come and watch us when we played. We would practice 3 times a week for like 4 to 5 hours of practice. Yeah. We would do insane things. We could tie every song to every other song with these little parts that we wrote. We were just endlessly creative together. That's all, and it was a really neat time. But it didn't have radio value necessarily. Yeah. But there was one other thing though. I had actually started The Color Fred at the end of Breaking Pangaea, and I had a song on an Equal Vision comp back then.
I was going to ask about that too, actually. Yeah, that's really fun. Okay, so
I may have went more the Dashboard Confessional route at some point, which, by the way, Further Scenes Forever was another band that took Breaking Pangaea out. That was sort of that technical thing that we wanted to be,
Right, yeah, right on. Okay, that makes sense. So maybe you would have been like, there would have been a Color Fred album early 2000s, maybe.
Interestingly, while I was in Breaking Pangaea, and you guys are all going to start laughing when I say this, but about the second or third year of Breaking Pangaea, I was asked to possibly play guitar in Dashboard Confessional.
Really?
I had decided, like, I like what I'm doing. I like the Pangaea thing. no thanks, but no thanks. And
was this was Dashboard Confessional already doing like late night at this point, or
it was just as it was blowing up, like I'd say 6 months before the MTV Unplugged thing.
Yeah, right.
So it was, I could have been there for that, possibly, had things worked out. I'm still very close with Chris, and he's asked me other times to be in the band, and the timing just doesn't seem to ever work out for us. But
right,
those are, all I knew since I was in 9th grade is I want to play guitar. I don't care what else I have to do.
Yeah,
and I never really was going to be a singer, but I needed vocals on my guitar music. So then I learned how to sing from listening to Jeff Buckley. And I wasn't going to stop. So I could tell you, had I not gotten in TBS, it would have been something. I just don't know what.
I can see that, because, the way I'm thinking about it now, it's like you have been a part of so many different projects, and you've, done session work, touring for other bands like Say Anything, which was later on, and the Lemonheads, which is crazy. I also want to talk about that in a sec. But, I guess it's like, say you never joined Taking Back Sunday, and regardless of where Breaking Pangaea would have gone, it seems like you still knew enough people, and you're nice enough of a dude and competent and driven that, like, you would have just found something somewhere, whether it was, playing with Dashboard or, doing a...
Yeah, we knew any of those people. I mean, when Coheed lost their bassist, a couple years ago, I said, hey, I play bass, who knows, right, what could have, come. So
Right. So, man, I guess from there, we'll get into the nitty gritty, I guess.
Sure.
Get into the next phase of your life, which was
and there's no real negativity for me with TBS. I try to avoid that. So we'll be nice. I think.
Yeah, no, totally.
But ask whatever you want, as I said before.
Totally. Yeah, there's only one slightly controversial thing that I want to mention, and we'll do that in a second. I talked to you before about that. I don't even want to. I'm not looking to.
I know.
Throw anybody under the bus, but there are things that have happened that, you know what I mean, that like I haven't.
No, yeah, and people want to know the truth, so it's fine with me.
Right, and I feel like some of the things that I'm even going to ask about with that, it's like it's been like 10 years since some of that stuff even happened, so it's like I'm sure everybody involved is like grown and could, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I'm not concerned about it, honestly.
Yeah. Anyway, but before we get into that business, so you joined Taking Back Sunday. People who I think people know, you've explained in plenty of interviews how that happened and how, amazing and crazy that was for you in your life. I think you were turning 30 when Where You Want to Be came out, right? And like you said,
on my birthday. Yep.
So it was kind of like, for you, obviously that must have been a huge moment, because you were like, yeah, I have this family. I'm, starting to need to find a real stable income or whatever. And like, finally I'm in a band. I stepped into the right situation where it's happening for me now.
Yeah, it was, it was like the, definition of your dreams coming true, and at the same time it's a little weird because your dream is not the dream you thought, you're not singing anymore as the lead singer, and
it's not even like your band.
I joined someone else. I always said I was Sammy Hagar, being a Van Halen guy. That was me. So
that's funny. I think it's funny. I think the opinion on that from fans may have switched, because I remember at the time it was kind of like, it was like, I remember being a fan at the time, and like people didn't necessarily. It wasn't that. From what I remember, people like liked, or at least like my friends like liked the records you were on, but it was always that like, man, like their new stuff is cool, but Tell All Your Friends is like sick. Like, wouldn't it be sick if John Nolan came back? But and I mean, this is shooting way ahead, but John Nolan did come back, and then blah 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 blah. But it's almost like I feel like now people seem to like miss the Fred era of the band a lot more. And I'm jumping way ahead, but it's just funny to me that you say you're Sammy Hagar, because I almost feel like at this point I wouldn't say that. Maybe in like at the time it might have felt like that, but now it's like I don't know.
No, I know. I thought of that because Sammy had wound up having the best-selling records at the time. But you're right. Like
that's an aspect of it too, though. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but then over the test of time, you're right. After I left, I had said in many interviews, I hope that over time, my stuff, my story stands the test of time, and and it would be kind to me, hope, history as it were. So
and I think
that's depending who you are,
Yeah, and I think if you look at the numbers, it's pretty obvious at this point which records of theirs have done better than others. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Well,
no, I mean,
not to be weird. I don't know. I just think that like it's just funny now. See, we're kind of jumping in the head because this ties into.
Well, we can go back.
Let's pick back up on that in a second. And also,
please.
all mad love to Adam Lazzara and Mark O'Connell and all of those fine men. I'm not trying to put anybody under the bus.
Well, no, they were on those records. So,
exactly.
And they're still playing them. So
yeah. So anyway, I guess before we get more into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about one question I had for when you joined Taking Back Sunday, kind of going back to, I guess, you being older than those guys. I mean, I think you and Eddie were like the same age, right?
Yeah. He was a little older than me, but I was basically, the difference was I was the only one who was married with a kid, and Adam and Mark were like 21, and I was like 28, and Eddie is a little older, and so they were kind of like, I kind of came in. I had the most life experience, so when I came in, it was like they had a van, but like the windshield was spiderweb cracked. It wasn't inspected, and the trailer was not ready to go. And I had been on the road doing, running my own band for years. So it was like, all right, let's, I know where to get it fixed. Let's go over to the DMV and get the tags and,
so you're the, like, I've been through this before. Just follow me.
They started calling me Papa Fred at the time because, I just was that way. Like, quit fooling around. We gotta get to the DMV before it closes.
Right, totally. So, I gotta ask though, was it a weird thing for you? Not only, were most of the dudes younger than you, which, I could imagine being like. I'm 24 right now, so I'm not even like that, but I can kind of imagine being like close to 30 and being like, I don't really want to be in a band with some like 21-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, and not even on top of that, I feel like Tell All Your Friends, which was the only record they had out at the time, was a very like youthful sounding record. Like they were a very like, that record sounds like a dude going through his first breakup at like 19. You know what I mean? So was it weird for you joining this band that not only literally was younger dudes, but also just a very younger, like the vibe of it was younger as a whole?
I mean, my friends who were my age were not stoked that I was joining this band.
Sure.
They were like, dude,
like,
we
Fred,
checked out their...
What the fuck are you doing?
We checked out the record. How are you going to play that crap?
Because at this point, you're Fred from Breaking Pangaea. You're like the math rock nerdy, like, you weren't like fashion core, let's say that,
Not at all.
And
farthest from it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could imagine that. Yeah. I mean, might have been a little.
So it was an adjustment. And it was like, okay, so, I started learning the songs. And but that's what I do. Like, I taught guitar lessons through my 20s. So I was like learning every Blink-182 song, every Green Day song. So it was like, I learned the songs to a T.
Yeah.
To be honest, I needed a little prodding from Adam to get my screaming going. I didn't want to damage my voice. My voice was very smooth in Breaking Pangaea, and it's not anymore. It's now scarred up. So I needed some coaching from Adam on that. He was like, I was like, it hurts. He's like, do it anyway. I was like, it really hurts. He's like, just do it. And
it's funny. Some of those vocal takes, specifically on Where You Want to Be, are very like, I'm like, sometimes I'm almost like, how did they keep this vocal take in? Because it'll be like, Adam will just start doing some high-pitched screaming that kind of just like, it's not like screaming the vocal technique, but he's just like, type stuff. And I'm like, and it's so awesome. I remember, hearing like you guys' old records and with Adam specifically, he was always a very creative, with melodies, and lyrics and
willing to go all the way, never hold back. Just like, anything it took, he was going to get it. Like, no matter how high the note, he was going to find a way to get it done on the record. And
and it's like, even like, you watch videos of you guys live back in the day, and like, you listen to Adam, and I feel like live, it's like a lot of times he wouldn't even necessarily be actually hitting the right notes, but he would sing it it was almost more about the emotion and the passion in which he delivered it, that even though he wasn't always hitting the right notes, it was still sick and conveyed. Like, you're like, I get it. I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but you know what I mean? He had
I certainly, man, there were times when he was on his game. We went to Australia once, and he had gone through a really good period. He was with a girl at the time, trying to meet this new girlfriend, and he killed it every night. Like, we talked about that for years, about, man, like, he was a legend of that tour. Like, and so it was always, it was ups and downs depending on how he felt or how we were getting along, all of us.
Yeah, and was he like a smoker, drinker kind of guy too?
Yeah, cigarettes, etc.
I feel like I can hear like the cigarette.
That's what it. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, he must still. I don't know if he still smokes, but that was like, you just listen to Tell Your Friends and Louder Now, and that's a smoker going.
And him especially live too. You're like, oh, I can hear he's going for it, but there's that like kind of strain there, which it works for some people. I just can't imagine. Like, I just feel like that would put. If you're a vocalist, like, that would make it just that much harder to be a vocalist, because not only is your throat kind of damaged, but you're also like, your lungs are kind of damaged, and it's not easy to get oxygen everywhere, right? Like, I always think about it in like
it's a workout.
I mean, that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we do an hour and a half shows, and I never have smoked, and I'm a freaking vegan, and I'm freaking huffing and puffing on stage every night.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I guess, I don't know if I want to get it. I mean, was Taking Back Sunday, I mean, you've always been straight edge and vegan and whatnot. Were the other guys in that band, was it like a party atmosphere at all? And if it was, did that sort of, escalate any
so like
weirdness between members, maybe? I don't know.
So I obviously was not the party guy. I would leave the stage and go to the back of the bus, and we had a studio back there, and I would write the next album and do that every night. And but I didn't I don't think, and no one was out of hand in that band too bad. There were moments, but I don't think it caused as much stress as it could have. But I think that I made the band a little more like, look, we got to be professional, and so no one would ever even have a beer until after the set every night, because we needed to get through that set. We were playing for thousands of kids, and we needed to be good.
Right.
And so that was sort of a policy that we did. And it wasn't just me. Like, Matt Urbano is super professional all the time, and he wanted to be on point every night on stage. And so he made it, he was a differentiator in that lineup as well.
Which almost kind of, does that show a little bit how the dynamic in that band might have shifted from the Tell Your Friends era to the arrival of you and Matt? Maybe a little bit more of a focus on being a little bit more professional and mature about things, because I know there was a lot of drama that led to John and Sean leaving originally, and I think that Adam was ready to go to the next level. He wanted it to be super pro. He was listening to bands bigger than us, like the Killers or the Strokes, and going like, I want to be like that someday. And and so he was willing, but he may not have had the means to do it until we got there. Right.
So that guy is a determined person. Like, when I joined that band, that was the one thing I had so much respect for, was they were so much more driven than even Breaking Pangaea. Like, they just wanted it so bad. And like, I had never experienced it to that level. And so when I got there, they hadn't found Matt Urbano yet. And I kind of convinced them, like, look, you guys are big now. Anyone would want this gig. Let's get the best person we can possibly find. You know, let's not get your buddy who plays guitar. You know? It was kind of floating around at the time.
Yeah, because Matt Urbano, kind of like yourself, I believe, is like a trained musician, went to music school type thing. And he's like, he can kick anybody's, he can mop the floor with anybody on the bass. Like, that's crazy. That's one of the, you and his arrival to the band, as far as a musical standpoint, like, I think took things to the absolute next level, because, Tell Your Friends, I feel like, is a, it's definitely a classic record at this point. But that record is more of I feel like what's special about that one is just it's very raw, and it's very emotional, and it's very, it's more of just a raw emotion album. It's not even that emotion in it is almost like more important than the musicality even. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
And I think, it was produced by a reputable guy who put it together nicely in a package. It wasn't self-recorded or anything. So it had some polish on it. Yeah. But that guy was smart enough. He came from like more of a hardcore scene. He was smart enough to know when to keep it raw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fix up the wrong notes, but don't lose the emotion. So that was, I really commend Sal Villanueva a lot with that record. Just knowing, I have been to that studio. Breaking Pangaea did our Equal Vision record there.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you
go.
So
I have some experience with those guys, and they made it. They managed to make us 2 classic records. That, and they also did Full Collapse by Thursday.
Oh wow! Right, that's crazy. That's wild. And so I feel like, with the addition of you and Matt Urbano, I think I've come to the conclusion that Where You Want to Be is probably my like all-time favorite Taking Back Sunday album.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I've gone back and forth for years. It's always been hard for me to choose between the first three. I'm like, I don't know. They're all great in their own ways. You know what I mean? Like I'm not even just saying that because I'm like talking to you or whatever. Like it's just like, I'm like, there's things that I love about all three of them equally, but I think Where You Want to Be hits the sweet spot for me because it's like, it still has that raw, emotional, sort of underground energy that Tell Your Friends had, but with you and Matt Rubano coming in, there's a little bit, it's like a little bit more polished, and the music is a bit more in the pocket and a bit more just taken to a next level. But it's almost like by the time Louder Now came around, that was probably, at least with you in the band, like the most, I don't even know if you'd call it like polished, but I view Louder Now as like, that was you guys like rock album.
Yeah,
like,
we knew what we had full control at that time to sort of like, let's just make something that we like, and and we all had different influences, but we were going to like the dream producer that we thought we wanted.
Right.
Whereas like Where You Want to Be it just felt great the whole time. We were in the honeymoon era, whereas Louder Now, we had already had a few fights, and we were still getting along, but it was, obviously that didn't last too many years after that.
Right. So before we get into your departure from Taking Back Sunday and all that, one thing I wanted to ask you about, kind of related to that era. So basically, as I was telling you earlier, right around when Louder Now came out, and that's when I first got into Taking Back Sunday, and I was literally like a child. Like I was like in like 6th grade, which is funny.
That's awesome.
And it was around that time that I used to watch MTV all the time, and I got really into like rap and hip hop music like first, because that's like all they would play on MTV is like Snoop Dogg and Eminem. So I was like super young, like into that kind of stuff. And then one day, it must have been 05 or 06 or around there, I was watching MTV, watching music videos, and the music video for Sugar We're Going Down by Fall Out Boy came on.
Oh, shit.
And yeah, man, it was like, for me, and this might sound funny to you, but it was like, the feeling that I got from watching that music video for the first time was like probably what some 12-year-old in 91 felt the first time they watched like Smells Like Teen Spirit. Before getting into any like indie rock or anything. I was like, I don't even know what it is about this, but I love it. I've never seen anything like this before. And and that
amazing.
That band for me was Fall Out Boy, and I bought From Under the Cork Tree, which had come out at the time, and then from there, I got into like all of the Fueled by Ramen bands, which like Cute Is What We Aim For and Panic at the Disco, all those bands that were all like 18 years old and getting famous on like their first record, and then through that, I would get into Taking Back Sunday, and then eventually kind of broadened my horizons from there, and kind of found older stuff, and but that's kind of where it started for me. And I guess now that I'm older and I've had enough time to obviously kind of study that music scene and that wave a little bit, and I've always been interested in kind of talking to people and dissecting what that wave meant to people involved, because for me, I was like one of the kids who I didn't have I wasn't old enough to have the indie cred of like listening to those bands before they were on MTV, but I was like 12 years old, and that music blowing up was my gateway to basically like punk rock as a whole, or all types of stuff like that. So that being said, I
think it's a good thing, because to me, punk rock is like just knowing how to be yourself and be comfortable, a little, you know, disheveled, or however the hell you want to look.
Totally.
And be just proud of who you are and not faking it. That's all punk rock is for me. So if that goes to the masses, that's like a great thing for the world, you know?
Right on. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, like you were saying earlier, you know, Pete Wentz was a really good businessman. I mean, he had a vision. He turned his band into something that ended up being kind of larger than life. He discovered Panic at the Disco, who turned into another band that was kind of larger than life. And I feel like you had Fall Out Boy and MCR, who kind of pushed that stuff to a mainstream level, but then you had Panic at the Disco, who kind of pushed it to almost an arena rock level that I don't think a lot of those bands in the scene, like, for example, Taking Back Sunday, or bands like Armor for Sleep, or May, or like Motion City Soundtrack, like all these bands that existed in this almost middle class of a music scene. It was like people were becoming millionaires, and everyone was trying to be the next Fall Out Boy, or people were like moving back in with their mom. You know, it seems like that kind of thing. It almost became hair metal. It went from being this indie thing to almost being this hair metal thing, really, with the arrival of all those like Fueled by Ramen bands. So I wanted to know, and I especially want to know kind of your thoughts on like Fall Out Boy and that whole scene and everything, because, you know, in my eyes, Fall Out Boy wouldn't have sounded like Fall Out Boy had it not been for a record like Tell All Your Friends coming out. And it seems like Fall Out Boy and MCR and a lot of those bands that, you know, obviously you weren't like originally in Taking Back Sunday, but you were in that band enough.
Yeah, no, it was a lot smaller when I joined. That's for sure.
Yeah, so. And I guess like Fall Out Boy kind of blew up.
So the first tour, first,
right?
the bigger, I always say maybe I was in the third biggest emo band ever. I don't know who we're counting, but so the first big tour that I did, I did a tour with TBS, and then we went into the studio, made Where You Want to Be. Then we did Warped Tour that summer. Then the next fall, we went out on our first big headlining tour.
Okay.
And
was this 04?
We had Fall Out Boy as the opener on that tour. And I still have like a stack of posters from that I figure the Fall Out Boy fans wouldn't mind seeing. But I got friends with those guys at that time. Let me think about that. Or was it, I'm sorry, it was before we did Warped Tour, because they called me from their van the day Where You Want to Be came out, and they were like, dude, we all bought a copy of your record. We're on tour right now. And we stopped by Tower Records, and I believe they were in a van and trailer at the time.
Wow.
So, like, we stopped by Tower Records and each bought a copy of your record. We can't believe how good it is. Like,
that's so nice, man. That's so sweet.
And so, I always saw some influence there that I was endearing to me. And yeah, they were the nicest dudes. Who calls the band on the day their CD comes out and like, we bought 4 copies of your CD, and we can't stop listening to it. And
that's genuinely like really sweet of them.
That's a thing. So they came. That's sort of a thing with the hardcore scene. I feel is like genuine personality, like just really just good people. And so I stayed friends with those guys even after Taking Back Sunday. I have to admit I haven't talked to them in years now, but you know, Patrick Stump was the first person that I texted when I quit the band. I just was like, hey, I just wanted you guys to know first, but I'm not in the band. I quit the band.
Wow,
today,
no shit. What did he say? Do you remember?
He was just like, you know, good luck in the future. Yeah, just nice. He's just the nicest guy ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's why Matt Rubano joined his band, his Patrick Stump solo band, when he left PBS, because they were like sweet guys. And, you know, I think there was, you know, I'm not going to say there wasn't any jealousy when they got so huge.
Totally.
But not from me, I'll tell you that. So, I always wondered if, when they say number one with a bullet, if they got that from anywhere, because I named that song, by the way.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that in one of the YouTube videos you made. I forget. I think it's the one where you like watched a bunch of old like emo classic music.
Yes. Videos. Okay. Yeah, my reaction video.
You had brought that up. Well, I mean, I don't think that that's too out of the you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were my friends. So
and dude, I mean, Take This to Your Grave by Fall Out Boy, their first record, there's a lot of lyrics on there that are definitely like kind of early Taking Back Sunday lyrics, like reworded a little bit, like on. Yeah, I don't know if it actually was, but it reminds me of like when I was younger writing a song and you're like, there's this song I love, and you kind of take it and just like, you don't really know how to write yet. Like, you know, so
I ripped off a Phil Collins lyric here or there.
Yeah. So, you know, that could have been a thing, because they were definitely a band who were inspired by TBS. You know, I don't think it would be out of the question to, you know, speculate that, you know. No,
and
lyric. Who knows? You know,
I forgot to mention, but on that tour, I got up with them every single night and sung that Gentleman song with them. You are a gentleman, and maybe it won't find out. I sung the like. There was a whole middle section, and I sung all that on that song.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, we were definitely boys back then. So they used to call me Straight Fredge because I was straight edge. So.
Yeah, their drummer Andy is vegan straight edge too, right?
Yeah,
Were they all vegan straight edge at the time? I'm not sure. I've heard that, but
they were all straight edge. But I don't think they were vegan, no.
Yeah, interesting.
But they're from that world, you know, the Earth Crisis hardcore era, you know.
Which were you ever into that? Getting into that stuff in the 90s?
Or pre-Earth Crisis, I would go to Gorilla Biscuits shows and Judge and listen to all those Revelation Records bands, and then I got beat up pretty good by like 20 guys at a show, and then I stopped going to hardcore until and then I started going again recently because no one messes with the old guys.
Yeah. I'm not really a hardcore guy personally, just because like I feel like I'm not angry enough as a human being to listen to that kind of stuff. Like I like powerful rock upbeat music, but I don't. It's like the macho energy of a lot of hardcore.
That's not my thing. I don't. Yeah, when it's not as much about the music, it's boring to me. So I like the Refused a lot. You know, their of course Shape of Punk to Come, and more like smart hardcore. You know.
Yeah.
Snapcase
Totally. So yeah, man, and I guess just like going back to the whole Fueled by Ramen craze and that whole emo pop punk kind of revolution happening in the mid 2000s, were you just like, all right, this is what's happening now? Like, did you think much about it, or was it, because I definitely remember there were like, I would read interviews with bands like, I think I read this interview with the band Cartel, like way back in the day, and they were like talking about, this was in like '06, like right as Panic at the Disco were blowing up, and they were like basically salty about the fact that like you know, the gist of it was like, we've been grinding it out in our shitty van for years. We play the very same kind of music. And then within a year, these 18-year-old little fucking kids from Las Vegas, you know, put together this little record. And now like didn't have to pay their dues. They just boom. Like, people,
I mean,
like people were jaded about that. Were you jaded about that, or were you just like, well, this happens, you know?
I have always stood by that music is not a competition.
Right,
on. When I was in Breaking Pangaea, we played a show once where literally 0 people came. It was Little Rock, Arkansas. You know what? We set up our shit and we played for the other band. Yeah, and it would turn out that it wasn't like no one wanted to come. The freaking promoter forgot to put the flyer up online or do anything or tell anyone about it. So, you know, I'm going to play hard if there's 3 people or 3,000. So like for me, like them having fans doesn't take away from my fan. If my fans listen to me, then they can also listen to that. I don't care. Like, so that's the way I looked at it. I don't want to say our whole camp was like that because, you know, it's hard, you know, to see the new pretty girl at school, you know. Yeah. But the belle of the ball or whatever they say. So
absolutely.
So I remember, you know, an instance where there was a lead singer hanging around us, and there was sort of like this guy's getting too big for his britches, this kid, you know. But like, you know, that stuff gets you nowhere. And you know, I try to become friends with all those people because, you know, I went on Warped Tour with the Color Fred in '08, and I became friends with Mayday Parade and 4 Years Strong and all these bands that were big at that time. And they were like bringing me to Europe and stuff, you know.
That's awesome. Right.
It was like, hey man, I like everybody.
Right. This is the evolution of the scene. These are the new bands. It's like, sure, to some like jaded, you know, old heads or whatever, Mayday Parade might be blasphemous to them, but like I feel like it's the thing where it's like you just hang out with the people and then you realize that, oh, they're just people making music just like me. It's not, you know.
They in one way or another, they did have to pay their dues, you know.
Yeah,
and
right.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned the Cartel story because I remember Lifetime complaining about us not paying our dues, you know, not specifically Taking Back Sunday, but all the bands at that time. Yeah. There was a quote where he said, you know, I slept in a van for, you know, 10 years to pay for these guys' haircuts, you know. Right. And I was like, hey man, you can pick up your guitar and do it. I'm actually their age. So that's what's funny about me hearing that, because I'm like, dude, I was here the whole time, man.
Exactly, right? Yeah, that's so funny, man. Yeah, there was a total like rivalry in kind of the Warped Tour world at the time. Like I remember there was a quote, I forget who said it. It was either like Fat Mike or somebody similar to Fat Mike. Like a guy like that said something along the lines of like, and this was in like 2008, you know, or whatever. So it's kind of funny now, but like said something along the lines of like, man, like all these like new Warped Tour bands remind me of like the popular kids that I went to high school with that I was trying to like get away from. And I'm like, I see what you're saying, but it's, and I see how it may look that way, but this is from my eyes, as a kid who was going to Warped Tour at that time, I can tell you that Warped Tour very much still was a hub of the outcasts, and you would go to the Warped Tour, and the style was different. Kids had the hair in their faces and whatever, but it was like Warped Tour to me was. It's like if you took every kid in middle or high school who like didn't have any friends at their middle and high school and put them in one place, it's all of those kids in that town. And it wasn't, I don't think it was a shock
that's our
thing.
crew, man.
Yeah, dude,
that's our people.
Yes.
And when it kind of brings up, I wanted to bring up like the current, well, not the past year, but the emo nights that were happening over the past couple years. A lot of guys in my scene are not into those because they think it's dumb that many people come out when there's not even a band playing.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I mean, I do kind of realize when I go to those that some of those people at those, they're just normal people, they may have been, some of them. Taking Back Sunday got to a level where we did have mainstream people listening to us.
Yeah.
Not the Warped Tour crowd when we were there, but when we were playing with Linkin Park, right. But the point is, like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the captain of the football team. If you want to listen to my music, you're welcome to come and listen to me. And I welcome everybody in the world, because, as soon as you start drawing lines, it's just, I mean, certainly I did that when I was in high school and I hated the cool kids. And
totally.
I would, try to scare them with weird hair and weird outfits, and
gotta be a punk, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I still, for life, true to death.
Totally.
But I just, I think that I don't understand when bands publicly claim, make these statements like I'm more punk than them. Well, are you though? Like whoever,
right. I think
how far are you taking it,
Exactly. I know what you mean. That's
why I'm very careful about this straight edge vegan thing, because somebody figures out that my quicksand shirt was made with bee honey or something. We all be the best person that we can, and we can't expect more than that.
Totally. I mean, man, no one can say anything to you about the vegan straight edge thing, because I mean, you're like a vet. You got into that shit in like the 90s, right? That was way before it was even cool.
80s.
It was in the 80s, dude. I can't even imagine being vegan at the time. Like,
I became vegan in the second half of the 90s, but I was straight edge. Like, I knew about straight edge in 88, 89.
Yeah.
Started going to those shows, and I think everyone should do whatever the hell they want. I've been in vans and buses with heroin addicts, and you can do whatever you want. I'm not judging a single person.
Totally.
But this is what makes me happy, makes me the best me.
Right on. Following, I think it's a good thing to, experiment and see what makes you most comfortable and most happy, and follow that, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, of course.
Yeah. That's always the thing. And when you're judging someone else for doing something, you're not doing, that's wrong as well. So just keep it to yourself.
Exactly. Like, it's not your life. You have no idea why that person is, like, doing heroin or whatever. It's not.
Exactly.
It sucks. It's, you hate to see that happen, but it's like, you're not. That's that person's journey. You're not.
Exactly.
It kind of is what it is.
Right. So that's I'm trying to be more, not to get dark, but more positive actually about it. But just when you mention those guys judging, the people before them, like, everyone does that. Like, freaking, there were guys who were big in 1969 who were going, Led Zeppelin, bunch of freaking, look at Pete Townsend, hated Zeppelin because they were all amazing musicians, better than him, and he couldn't handle it, people were loving it,
And, kind of going back to what I was mentioning at the very beginning, we were talking about, I think there's a lot of parallels between the sort of mid to late 2000s emo explosion and like the grunge era of the early 90s. The music was very different, but I think the way that the scene started and evolved and burnt out is very, it reminds me of grunge a lot. I don't know what you think the Nevermind of that is. For me, for me, I look at it as From Under the Cork Tree by Fall Out Boy. Maybe it's just because that's what got me into it, but I kind of view like that record. I mean, you had MCR who were huge. You had, you know, you guys were there too, and Paramore.
Yeah, I mean, I in my world, MCR was such a big player.
Yeah.
They were kind of our sister band almost at that time. We would get together before both albums, when we were coming out with Where You Want to Be and they were coming out with Revenge. Yeah. Three Cheers, Sweet Revenge. We would get together. Here's my new record. Oh, damn. Here's my new record. Shit. Like,
I could imagine.
And same thing with Louder Now and Black Parade. And, you know, we would talk to them while they were recording Black Parade and just couldn't believe how big they were getting. So,
yeah.
But they had like a whole, and I say this in a good way, an image thing that we didn't have, you know, MCR. They had like the whole goth thing was, you know, so big in England at the time.
Yeah, right.
They just had a whole other element of sort of like Coheed has the story and the comic book side. Like MCR had that imagery, and and they made them larger than life, and you know, Gerard Way a god and whatever, and so
absolutely.
But I you know, so so Fall Out Boy was just as big, but I sort of was less focused on them by then, because they were like my Where You Want to Be era. But by Louder Now, they could, because there was a time that we heard from Fall Out Boy's crew where they wanted to, like, at a sound check, from what we heard was Pete Wentz sort of took off the black hoodie and was like, I'm done with this scene. Like, and that's what, you know, this ain't a scene. It's a goddamn
arms race. Yeah.
You know, they were fed up with people being catty, you know.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And there was a lot of that toward them, especially because they were sort of the poppiest.
Yes.
You know, his voice was just made for radio.
Absolutely.
He had so many melodies that he could come up with.
Yeah.
And so they were just kind of like, all right, you don't respect us. We don't need your scene. And they sort of like transcended it at that moment.
Yeah.
And,
they almost kind of had their own scene, though. They like cultivated a lot of their own community, like with Pete Wentz's label and, you know, all those bands like Gym Class Heroes and whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah, that was sort of where they were. That was from them just being tired of what you're talking about, of like, you know, people looking down on them who came before them.
Right.
And they were just like, hey, we're huge fans of yours. Like, we're not trying to piss you off.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And then he was just like, all right, fuck you guys. Like, I'll do my own thing. And that's what he did. So
yeah, I always think about, cause you know, the Fall Out Boy guys all came from like political, vegan, straight edge, hardcore bands in Chicago. And I always picture like, you know, what were probably Pete Wentz's like close friend circle in 2002, his like hardcore bros being like, man, Pete Wentz is a fucking sellout. You know what I mean? Like, who
probably
from back in the day who are just like, can't believe that guy, you know, whatever. Whereas it's like, from the other perspective, it's like, well, the dude's band took off. Like, what you really wouldn't also, you know, do the same thing if you were him? Like, I don't know, but
no,
it's funny to me, you know, thinking about something like that.
No, and it goes back to what I said about my uncle who told me I should quit and hang it up. Like,
yeah,
after I made it in with TBS or whatever you want to call it, you know, when I was on TV and shit,
right?
He came back. He is a good enough dude. He came back and he said, I remember what I told you that Christmas, like, and I'm really sorry. I'm glad you didn't give it up. You know,
that's awesome. That's
good for you. And I was like, you know what, man, that means more to me than anything anyone in my family has ever said. Like, you owned up to it. So, and I'm sure so that's the thing. Like, Pete Wentz's friends back then were throwing up maybe, but as were my friends that I mentioned. But eventually they're like, hey man, fucking A, like, eventually you put out a record that maybe they'll like.
Right. Or those kind of youthful, like naive kind of punk ethos that you have, like those elitist feelings that you might have when you're young kind of go away once you're like an adult, and then you realize like, oh well, he just found a way to like make money playing music, which is awesome. Like,
exactly.
I doubt
that's what ultimately happens with all our friends, and they see like, oh shit, you were onto something that I wasn't aware of.
Right. Real quick, and then I want to move on to kind of the last segment of this sort of, or whatever. But one more random question, just because I'm curious, and Fall Out Boy are like still one of my favorite bands. What do you think of their like current music, their current musical output?
I don't understand it, but I'm not supposed to at my age. Like I don't know who they're like, because like my daughter who's in middle school, like her friends listened to them in the when they were even younger.
Dude, it's the craziest thing because not a lot of bands from that time can say this, but Fall Out Boy, there's really only like, the only bands you can say this about, I think, are Fall Out Boy, MCR, Panic at the Disco, and like maybe Paramore, are bands that like have become multi-generational phenomena.
Yes.
Like there are kids, there are 13-year-olds out there who are just getting into Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco through the music they're releasing now, which to me is insane, and
yes.
The music is very different,
It's always weird when you like a band and then like someone else is a fan and their favorite record is like the newest one and they don't even know the one that's your favorite, but that's their favorite band,
Yeah, dude, I saw Panic at the Disco live a couple summers ago at the TD Garden in Boston, and it was sold out, and I was literally like I was only like 22 at this show, but I felt so old because not even like literally just because I was like, everyone here is like 12 years old. How do these people know who Panic at the Disco is? And I'm looking at all these kids and I'm like, dude, y'all don't know. I saw this band like original lineup. I remember when it was I know it was
actually a band.
Yeah, I saw that live. Y'all were being conceived when I was at the OG Panic at the Disco show, and like that was a huge moment for me where I was like, okay, this is I don't know. I'm sure you've had that with.
I've had that. Like Jimmy Eat World was my thing. I liked Clarity in 1998 probably.
Yeah.
Whenever that was pretty new, and it was an emo record to me. And then they did the 10-year anniversary of it in the late 2000s, and I went, and the kids were all bored watching it. And then they came out for their encore and played The Middle and Sweetness, and it was moshing and crowd surfing, and I was just like, oh my god, like this is a different world now, and it's
crazy,
and good for them,
Yeah, Fred, I just had a really quick alternate universe scenario that I want to run by you. Okay. Picture this, right? An alternate universe where basically Taking Back Sunday ended up doing like exactly what Fall Out Boy are doing right now. Like if Taking Back Sunday had a second mainstream wind and are now making like mainstream, pop
like
music.
Dubstep.
Yeah. If Taking Back Sunday were now, experimenting with EDM and and all this stuff.
So I will say that I had a vision for where TBS would have gone after Louder Now.
Really?
I had like songs in my head that were going to be the next era that would make sense, but bring the band a new audience.
I see.
And
I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah, no, and it was sort of like I really like this band called Metric, like with the girls singing with the female vocalist.
I know Metric, yeah.
It was sort of like on that tip, but with Adam singing.
Interesting.
And there have been other bands since then that I've heard that I'm like, man, Adam singing on this would be huge. Like they should do this, you know?
Right.
But you know, it was always, to be honest, there was always an argument as to whether we just keep making Tell All Your Friends over and over again. Because even though we look at it differently now, it really was what you said. Like when Where You Want to Be came out, everyone really liked it. It sold more than Tell All Your Friends by far. But the old school fans was still who, you know, some of them cared about. And they'd be like, you know, let's not depart too much from the first album, you know?
Yeah.
And if you listen to them now, it's still hanging on a little bit, whereas I don't think it ever would need to. I don't think they should, you know, I don't want them to see them become a full-on country band or anything else.
Right.
But I just think that, you know, when we got to Louder Now, we were like, look, you know, we're just going to write the music we're going to write, and we're not going to think about Tell Your Friends. And I think that was the biggest success. And I kind of saw the next evolution of that. It was more like, the reason I wrote up Metric was just like just real simple guitars, less big guitars.
Yeah.
More about the drum and vocal, and maybe some synths added. And it could have still been really cool.
It could have, you know, you say that, and that's interesting because I feel like that's kind of where bands like Taking Back Sunday ended up heading anyway. Once like kind of the early 2010s rolled around, it got a lot more minimal and more, you know, it wasn't like loud rock and roll with like big drums and distorted guitars stopped kind of being like the thing, or at least the thing that was, you know, at the forefront of you know, the sound and style of what bands like that were doing, you know?
No, I mean, well, there wasn't I wasn't in the band anymore, and there wasn't a Ray Toro to take my place. You know, it was like, it had to be a little less guitar-y, but
because it's, you know, Taking Back Sunday, if you look at the career now, they've had such a almost like a strange trajectory, especially since you left, because it was so like you left and then they had one album called New Again, which was it still wasn't the original lineup yet, but they got a guy named Matt Fozzy to replace you, and Matt Romano was still in the band. And then that record, I actually really like that album a lot. And then they got the original band back, and I think it took them a minute to get it together once they got the original guys back. In my feeling, but because it seems like.
But to be fair, they love that album. Like I see interviews of them talking about how that's like their favorite stuff. So.
Like they're like the self-titled one, the first one with because it, you know, that album, and I remember enjoying that album when it came out too, but I feel like it was definitely this thing where at least to them in their camp, it definitely seems like, okay, the band is happiest with John and Sean back in there, right? Like, I guess we're gonna unpeel this onion a little bit as we go on, but it seems like that record, like there was in the scene a lot of hype surrounding the original lineup coming back. It was like one of those emo dream things coming true.
Yep.
Like I told you, it was throughout that whole time. It was like, man, wouldn't it be sick if like John came back to Taking Back Sunday, and then like it happened. And
well, I'll tell you a secret. When I was in the band, someone offered them $100,000 to play a festival to headline with John and Sean back in.
Really? What year was that? Do you remember?
It would have been around 2005 or
Interesting.
6.
Okay.
But they turned it down because that was just not really possible at the time.
Yeah. Still kind of wounds that haven't
But-
healed yet, or whatever.
But that's how
maybe.
much people wanted that to happen. Well, that was the pressure I was always up against. Is like, you better be better than those guys,
Right?
Which, you know, and I just say, hey, time will tell. You know?
Yeah. And I think time, and I'm not even just saying this because I'm talking to you right now, but I literally, like, Where You Want to Be and Louder Now, if you think about a lot of the other records that were coming out around that time, I mean, obviously you have, like, you know, the MCR early records are like, those are classics at this point, and there are classic records that made it out of that time, but if you think back to a lot of those bands like Matchbook Romance or From Autumn to Ashes, it's like Where You Want to Be and Louder Now aged so much better, I think, than a lot of bands that I even liked from that era. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
No, the amount of work that we put in.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone else except maybe MCR doing that kind of work. Because just the amount that Adam would put himself through with the lyrics with me. You know, he and I would put it together. We'd think we have it. And then, you know what? We can do better. Trash the whole thing, start over and over. And, like, you know, producing it was a college education for me, you know, producing both those records.
Yeah.
Because a lot of musically fell on me with arranging everything. And so, I mean, I remember Eric Valentine telling me, like, you'll be able to produce any record you want after you're done doing this because you have seen everything under my hood, you know?
Yeah. And
it was so much work, and that's why it still holds up. Because we were thinking the whole time, we need this to be timeless. We don't want to do something that's just sounds like this moment in music.
Yeah, because the way okay, for example, take a song like The Union, right?
Yeah.
Dude, that song, and that's not even like, that's kind of a deep cut on that album at this point.
Yeah.
But that song, like, it kicks in immediately, and it's quick, and the vocal melodies, like, I went around, but it's like so busy and so much, but it's like still so catchy. And I listen to a song like that, and I'm like, dude, fucking nobody was doing it like this at the time. Bands were doing things like that. It wasn't like nothing else sounded like that, but it was almost like the way that you guys did it it stood out from the pack. You had the team, and you had what it took to like take out the competition, not to make it sound like wrestling or whatever, but like a song like The Union, I think, proves that, because you listen to that song and you're like, well, they basically just kind of took their influences from bands that were happening at the time and their peers, and they were like, how do we make something that makes sense for right now and that the kids right now will want to listen to, but also kind of push it to that next level of like, what aren't other bands doing to make it sick? Like, that's kind of how I view early Taking Back Sunday, and specifically your like contribution to those records, you know?
No, and I think the reason that you like New Again so much is you know, I mean, every record I've listened to all their records, and Adam always has interesting things to say in his lyrics.
Yeah.
But as far as New Again, like, I know that Matt Urbano is very proud of New Again. He told me many times, like, have you listened to that record? I need you to dig into that. Like, I'm really proud of it.
It's a great, dude, it's almost like, I kind of view that as like their Pinkerton in a way, because it was kind of the one that it like didn't do as well when it came out. And the band even kind of like a year later were like, fuck that album basically, and like never played anything off of it. But I know, because I talked to plenty of fans online, that album has a huge, it's like the kind of the cult album now in which is interesting.
Totally. Yeah.
And it is a great record. I wish they had got, I don't know, whatever, but the
thing that unfortunately that record lacked is that Matt Fozzy was not a singer-songwriter per se.
Yeah.
And whereas I wrote my first lyrics and music when I was in 5th grade, and it's me and my guitar. And so even if Adam's writing the lyrics, like I'm gonna like take it and make it into a song. Like I'm always thinking in like the Simon and Garfunkel, whatever it has to, you know, typical songwriting mind. And that was the only thing that record kind of flipped. It was a band record.
Yeah, it definitely had less of the like the dual vocalist thing that TBS was always known for, and it was like, it's a weird album because it's like poppier but also more aggressive at the same time in a weird way. I don't know if that even makes sense.
Yeah, because it is polished. Yeah.
It's polished, but it's almost like I don't know, but I can also tell from the band's perspective that maybe if I was like a part of the band that created that record, I could hear certain places where certain songs might sound a little bit more like sketches as opposed to actual, you know, which is kind of like if I were to maybe pick a like, you know, maybe a flaw off that album is like some of it feels a little rushed maybe, or a little less focused maybe than some of their other stuff. But I think that I always really love New Again, and I've always been in the camp of like, yo, people need to listen to New Again, and like I feel like that record should be. I honestly, dude, for years I always thought that New Again should have been the last Taking Back Sunday album. I was always like, yo, New Again felt like a really good like last album to me, and then in my head I always wanted Adam to start doing like acoustic alt country solo albums, and like
which he would love doing, I have a feeling, but
and reunite TBS every few years, because you know, and I guess this is a good time to jump into one thing I wanted to talk to you about around the I don't know, do you have any more thoughts on New Again or what I was saying about that?
I just felt like you know, there was a guy that I met. I was out on tour with Color Fred, and I was, you know, touring with my own band, and I got to San Francisco where Fozzie's from, and this guy came out, and he was kind of hanging around backstage. I think he was friends with the opener or something. And he comes up to me all like fronting, and he's like, "Yo, man, I'm best friends with Mike Fozzie." And I'm like, cool, man. Like, I quit, so I'm cool with Matt. I'm cool with Matt. Like, I don't care. Like, right. I'm stoked to be in the playing. I'm on tour with Color Fred. Like,
I'm playing my band now.
Yeah. Like, I don't care. So good. I'm best friends with this guy named Pat from Coatesville. So so anyway, so then he goes to me, "I just want to let you know something." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Matt Fozzie is the best musician I've ever met in my entire life." And I said, okay, but is he a singer-songwriter? Because that band needs a singer-songwriter. That's like how they function. That's how I got the job, because that's what John was, you know. And
hey, that's probably the reason why I just said maybe, you know, one of the downfalls of New Again is it feels a little half-baked. It's because there wasn't a you or a John Nolan or a guy who was like kind of the jelly to Adam's peanut butter, if you will.
Right. No, and the guy kind of shrunk and was like, actually, the last band he was in, he wasn't really even the main songwriter. And I was like, well, you know, good luck to him, you know.
Yeah, there were definitely, I think, from what I can tell, what Matt Fozzie definitely brought on that record was like cool, like jazzy kind of seventh chords on the guitar, which I'm sure you were doing too, but it was almost more of like
oh no, like his bands since then have been really cool, you know. I mean, believe me, he would have been a tempting choice for me if I wanted him to join my band. He's badass, you know.
Yeah. Seems like a great guy too.
The reason I always put it, you know, it's always about the songwriting, you know. Unless you're going to hire a songwriter, then, you know, why did it take Axl Rose 14 years to record Guns N' Roses Chinese Democracy? Because he can't write music without Slash. You know?
I know, because it's him and exactly.
So it's just, it's always going to be that with everybody, you know.
Right.
If the main songwriter leaves, good luck.
Yeah, right. So that leads me to so you you left Taking Back Sunday, and it's pretty like well documented as far as like your explanation for why you quit. You weren't happy in the band. Things were, kind of, I guess it seems like kind of maybe a volatile environment between members at the time. And, you were older, you had kids, you needed to the band wasn't making you happy.
I just needed to be happy. That's all it was. And
right on.
And, so it wasn't so much volatile. Even with my involvement, it just didn't feel like how I wanted, like a band that I wanted to be in,
Yeah.
And it didn't feel the way it did on Where You Want to Be,
So you leave the band, and the next couple years you're doing the Color Fred. I do want to I know we've been talking for like fucking 2 hours now, but I want to talk about the Color Fred. If you're down for this ride, man, then we'll
I'm always down, man. I'm here for the experience.
Right on. This might be a two-parter YouTube video or something. We'll see. But I really wanted to bring up and this is I DM'd you beforehand and asked if it was okay to bring this up, because I have never heard anybody talk about this since then. And it was around the time when the original Taking Back Sunday lineup came out. And keep in mind, I was still at that point on the younger side of maybe Taking Back Sunday's greater fan base. I was like in high school when the original lineup came back together, which was interesting. And I was really stoked on it. And right around the time when they put out that self-titled record, there was they had a cover story on AP, I think in 2011, so that would be 10 years ago now, which is wild. And so I'm like 15 years old, and Taking Back Sunday are like, I'm just going to give you the little perspective of where I was at the time reading this, and then I have like, I don't even know what questions that I have, but I just wanted to, anyway, enough with me prefacing. Let's just get into it. So I'm like 15. Taking Back Sunday are like, like the first, well, pretty much all Taking Back Sunday records at that point were like my fucking like musical, like y'all were my shit, and like Adam Lazzara was like my idol, dude. He could tell me to, at that point in my life, Adam Lazzara could probably tell me to walk off a cliff, and I would do it, man, because he was like, he's a
nice guy. He wouldn't do that.
Sure. But you know what I mean? Like, y'all were like, you were a big rock band that, I like was, looked up to, and you know what I'm saying.
No, of course. I have those bands. Yeah.
So I get this cover story, AP, Taking Back Sunday, like the oral history of the band, and it was really, so they did this oral history that, basically them, I think you were interviewed for it, and
I was, yeah.
And so I'm reading it, and they're going through, they've told the story of, the original lineup of the band, the Tell Your Friends era, all the original drama that happened, which led to John and Sean leaving, and then getting you and Matt Rubano in the band, and they went through everything. And at a certain point in the article, they didn't exactly have the nicest words to describe you or Matt Rubano or Matt Fozzy or literally all of the previous members. They were basically throwing everybody under the bus. Like this is just, and this was just what was in the article, like Adam and Mark specifically. Well, I haven't read it in a while. I think they were all basically just saying like, yo, Fred is an asshole. Like, all those former dudes are assholes. Like, being in the band with them was hell. Like, all Fred wanted to do was control. And then, Matt Fozzy was the same situation. Like, they basically made it sound like the book Get in the Van by Henry Rollins.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They made it sound like it was like this. It felt like I was reading Get in the Van, because that book is him just being like, I'm on tour and I'm miserable and, I'm alone with my... They made it sound like it was this horrible experience, and now they're finally back to where they need to be. And I remember, I was a young, like, impressionable kid reading that. So, dude, I literally remember reading that and being like, whoa, so Fred's like an asshole? Like, what? You know what I mean? Because I'm this kid and I take, they're this band that, like I said, I worship. I basically take them seriously. And I remember, and over time, at this point now, I'm like, dude, you're clearly not, like, all those guys they were talking shit about seem to be the nicest dudes. And there's even more things I have to say about that. But
you.
Yeah, so the one real quick thing that I have to say about that, I have like a few different like questions and things I want to say about this to you.
Down.
So I guess the first thing is I remember this. I don't even have a copy of that magazine with me, but I remember you were interviewed for the article and you said something along the lines of like, well, this is exactly why I needed to get away from this environment, is because I don't necessarily agree with what these guys are saying. I don't know why they're saying it. And and that simple thing that you said kind of spoke volumes to me, because I'm like, I guess the first question that I have is that article kind of a good representation of the maybe camaraderie or lack thereof camaraderie within the band, and sort of maybe a toxic environment that was sort of under the surface always taking place? Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, yes, I'm glad that you saw that, because some people did, like at the time that happened, I was in Terrible Things with Josh Eppard, the drummer of Coheed.
Yeah.
And he went back to Coheed. And he was out on tour, and he mentioned Terrible Things to some fans, and they were like, we heard that guy Fred's an asshole.
Dude,
and that really hurt him. Like, he was like, what? Like, what? Like, you believed that article? And they're like, well, Taking Back Sundays are our boys,
Dude, yep.
So that really hurt. But I called, so I did the interview.
Yeah.
And then I think either he sent me a copy of the article maybe, or he told me what they said.
Yeah.
I think he might have read to me verbatim things that they had said, and he wanted to try to get a reaction out of me.
Right.
And I said, oh my God. The one thing that really got me was that Mark said that I was either going to leave the band, or I was going to take 100% of all the money from everything. Yeah. Like they were going to go on tour and make zero money, and I was going to take all the money from from everything.
That like you were going to write the record yourself. Yeah, exactly. Take all the money. Right. I remember. Yeah, they were saying things like that, and
I was just like, what is going on here? Like,
yeah.
So because there was, there was some arguing about the publishing, but like, I wanted 3% more than what I was getting, because I just
which that's not a lot more.
Like an admin fee for putting all the music together,
Right, right.
I was just like, just anything, just let me know I'm appreciated,
Yeah, totally.
Give me whatever it is, $5 an hour. I don't care. Just tell me you love me. And,
exactly.
And it was like, how could you ask for more money than we're getting? And I'm just saying, like, I'm in the studio 24/7.
You were a big part of, if you listen to like Louder Now, it's like very apparent that you were a big part of the songwriting, I think, or at least the way that the songs were arranged, I think.
And not to mention, like, I wanted the same thing for Adam. It wasn't I wasn't me wanting it for myself.
Yeah.
Adam and I,
you wanted something that was fair, right?
I wanted Adam and I to be paid a nominal amount for doing a lot of extra work while those guys were at the beach while we were recording.
Totally.
While they were out on a yacht while we were recording. Whatever it was,
Right.
And it was just like, the most worst thing I could have brought up. And
apparently.
And so, but then it got turned into, I wanted 100% of all, and it was just like, why would I want that? Like, that wouldn't be if I did all the music, it wouldn't be Taking Back Sunday. So like, I'm not delusional. Like,
yeah.
So I begged the writer to not put that in. I was like, dude, that is not true. Like, please don't post that. And then he's like, I'm sorry, but it is what it is.
Yeah, right.
And then I called Eddie and I begged him to put a stop to the article. I said, Eddie, don't do this. The band's legacy is at stake, and you're putting a crazy negative spin,
dude,
on their legacy,
dude,
and it's not worth it. Like I said, look, you don't have to say that I did anything great, but why are you putting the ugly shit in here?
Yeah,
that
with such a focus on the ugly shit.
That's what I mean. Like, this is how you bring back John, and instead of talking about how good it's going to be with John, you're talking about how bad it was before. Like, that's not. See, talk about law of attraction.
Exactly, and that's kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you about with that, is because so the first time I read that article, like, I was like 15 and totally a different, like, I was like a teenager looking at the world through teenage eyes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like now that I'm of adult age and I've or older,
Yeah, sure.
And
still I've good to me, but no.
Thanks, man.
Just kidding.
No. But it's like, I have experienced more like real mature adult relationships. I've been in bands myself. I've been through band breakups. I've been through, like, nothing on any big scale or anything, but I've been through, like,
sure
experienced things like that. And I guess I went back to that article recently with kind of more of an adult lens on.
Yeah.
And I'm reading back on it, and I'm like, and like I said, I'm not bringing this up to throw anyone in Taking Back Sunday under the bus or whatever, but like, I look back at that now, and honestly, dude, my honest thoughts are like, that is such a shitty, immature way of, like, handling your business as a band. That's just my like, because it's the thing of, like, really, you're just, kind of like what you just said. It's you're not going to focus on how happy you are, or, well, you're focusing on how happy you are being back together, but you're doing so by dragging everyone else's names through the mud and painting this picture that almost, like, as a fan, you should feel guilty to like Louder Now or Where You Want to
Be. That's what I didn't like. It was like, where do the fans stand in the middle of a war? Like, let's not do this. And not to mention, I signed a paper when I left that said that I would not talk trash on them ever. And they signed the same one saying they would not talk trash on me. And then they just went against it and were like, fuck that guy. Fuck, And it was just like,
and like, there's a song, I forgot about this part. There's a song on New Again about you. That's another thing. Like,
there might be two. I'm not sure.
There might be two.
I found a B-side too, if you're interested. But yeah, you got to find it yourself. So anyway.
But dude, and like I said, not to rag on the Taking Back Sunday guys or anything. I'm not, that's not the energy that I'm trying to put out. I also try to be a positive force or whatever.
I know you do.
But those are just my honest thoughts about that article. And it's honestly, dude. And for me, I enjoy, the stuff that Taking Back Sunday have put out since the self-titled, but
I to me, Happiness is the best thing. That's my favorite album since I've left, for me. Just some of the songs, like, kind of wreck me. They're really good.
Yeah.
I want to tell you one other anecdote from that, though, really quick. But I met Izzy. They had this guy, they call him Izzy, who played third guitar after I left. Do you remember there was a third guitarist?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was Matt Fozzy and Eddie, and then they had a third guy to sort of fill it in a little
Yeah,
bit.
right.
And so so I met that guy at Warped Tour in probably like 2011 or 12. He was no longer with them, and he came out and he watched it was Terrible Things. He watched our Terrible Things set at Warped Tour.
Right on.
And I got off stage and he came up to me and we were talking for like 15 minutes, and he's like, dude, I can't believe that I'm talking to you right now and that you're not a monster. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're actually like a decent person. Like, I thought you were like scum of the earth, because he was in that camp. And
yeah,
so, you know,
and you know, man, what I was saying about, like, I enjoy the, the records that Taking Back Sunday have made, but, and I don't know if there's anyone else out there who feels the same way, but like, I've always had a sour taste in my mouth about the original lineup since reading that article, which has now been a decade ago. But whenever I hear their new stuff, I'm like, this is cool, but this is like built on, them being like, fuck Fred and all these other guys, this is the real shit. And I'm almost like, it almost like makes me, it just kind of has always left a sour taste in my mouth. And I wish
it wasn't, honestly, I wish to God that they never said any of that, and that they were still playing now, and that they were freaking amazing live.
Yeah.
And I wish that the whole legacy of them, because if they go down, if they get worse, that hurts me just as much. Like, oh, I'm the guy from Taking Back Sunday. Oh, I hate them. Oh,
exactly.
Man, come on, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and
forever tied together. There's a song I wrote, a new song I wrote called Crooked Mile, about our fates being chained together. No matter whether they like it or I like it or not, we're stuck.
Exactly.
We had a baby together.
You did, yeah. One of you is the other one's baby mama. I'm not sure which one, but I mean, I guess just to ask about that article one more time, like, why do you think that they did that? I don't know if that's a question.
Well, when I hit Eddie up, I said, I think I called him, and then I texted him a few times, and I texted him just like, don't do this. Like, the band, you don't want the band to have a negative like history here. Like, it's not going to be good.
Right.
And not to mention, the stuff isn't true, and you know it.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that wasn't something. Eddie and I are still cool, like, seriously. And he didn't say anything about me in the article. And so he said, that was something that those guys kind of wanted to do. And, we're just trying to do the best thing for the band right now to survive, And I was like, but this isn't the best thing for the band's longevity. And they just didn't see it that way. And I couldn't believe that their manager just let that happen.
Yeah, that doesn't, I think back, because to me, I keep up with Taking Back Sunday too, and I watch a lot of their interviews and stuff that they do. And I mean, I've never met any of those guys or know any of them personally, but it seems like John Nolan seems like a really sweet guy.
Super laid back dude.
Yeah, like and even at this point, Adam seems like a totally level-headed, like, especially at this point, everyone's older.
I did talk to Adam in recent years.
Oh, really? Wow.
And we've I would say patched it up, although I don't think we're going to talk often.
Yeah.
Although I personally wish we could. But so I think right now it's kind of all about Mark and that just holding on to resentment, you know,
Yeah.
and carrying those things with him.
That guy, like, it seems like he fucking hates you, man. I don't know if that's still
He
the
does.
case, but he
does.
Like,
let's laugh about it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's
no. I mean, I can't be. I've been out of the band for almost 14 years, you know, and
I'm just like, Fred, what did you do to Mark O'Connell, man?
I don't know. I want him to tell me.
Hey, Mark, can we get Mark in here on the Zoom call? No, just kidding.
Please, no, no. But it's just, you know, it's just some people just carry stuff with them, and if there's any way that he could let it go, I would in a second be his friend again. Like you know, when I left, I thought it was more him and Adam fought. Like I didn't realize that I was in the crosshairs at all. Like, so you know,
because even Mark seems like a totally funny. I mean, based on what I see of him, like
we had good times together. That's why I don't understand.
I guess another question that I have from that is like, you know, they kind of painted it as this super bad picture, but were you guys like close friends when you were in the band? Were you like genuinely close, and was there a camaraderie, or was it kind of some things were strictly business and this and that?
I think that we tried to be friends, and we were all very different. I think that the reason I'm still friends with Eddie is because we had a lot in common, being the same age. And I think Matt Urbano and I are still close. We're probably the closest because we have similar beliefs in like friendship and loyalty, and we also both just love music obsessively.
Totally.
So like, you know, Adam and I's connection was songwriting, but we would have to get in the zone. Like we would kind of not hang out. And then when it came time to write, we would hang out every day. We would, you know, the first record I went to his apartment every day and just wrote. And then these Louder Now, we rented a place, and we would all go there every day, and he and I would stay until midnight, until the last train in New York City, and then I would have to catch the bus home, and he would take the subway, and when we were writing together, we were musical soulmates. Like I felt very on the same page as him from like a loving music perspective. Yeah,
you guys definitely had a very iconic, like, you guys complemented each other really well, which I almost feel like, going back to the thing of like at the time you felt like Sammy Hagar or whatever. Maybe you love Sammy Hagar. I don't know. I'm under the impression that most people.
No, I really don't anymore. Mixed feelings.
Oh yeah. But it's just a funny thing because
I'm a Dave guy, if you're asking.
So at this point, though, it's almost like you know, with Taking Back Sunday's newer stuff, it's like, now we can really hear what you brought to the band because of the absence of it, you know?
Well, you know, especially because one of the records, they went back to Eric Valentine, who did Louder Now. So the only X factor at that point is me and Urbano, you know? Yeah, right.
So,
so that always spoke volumes to me. Yeah. I was glad they went back to Eric, even though I would have liked to have been there. Yeah, totally. I like working with him, but so, but I guess like, I do think to me it had a lot to do with the resentment had a lot to do with what happened after I left, because I was not really aware that there was any animosity between us until after their After New Again came out. Yeah. And I think when they weren't getting the numbers that they were used to getting, you know, like Louder Now, 165,000 the first week. That's, you know, insane, number 2 on the charts. Yeah. You know? behind, I think, Bruce Springsteen.
That's no joke, man. Those are big numbers.
And so then you go from that to whatever New Again was.
Yeah, I think
it kind of, to me, it became my fault. Like, and like, even though like they wouldn't want me there, it's like I don't know. Like
I feel like it almost seems like they had maybe a misguided view on like their own band, even if that makes sense, because like almost in the sense of like blaming you for something like that doesn't really make sense. And like to me, I mean, you know, just like throwing old band members under the bus just never seems like good, you know.
Oh no,
business. I mean, I don't know.
No, you can't. You know, you just it's like ex-girlfriends. You know, you're just gonna look like an ex-boyfriend who's bitter. You know.
Yeah, and once like time goes by and the drama dies out, it's like it just looks, you know, that kind of stuff doesn't age well, I guess. You know, petty drama publicized. It's exciting in the moment, but then it's like for this situation, it's like, dude, Fred's not a bad guy. Matt Fozzy is not a bad guy. Like, these are just people playing music that joined your band. You know, I don't know.
So but I think, you know, and I don't want this to age poorly either, because
totally.
You know, it's just, to me, it's in the past now. I do enjoy telling stories, honestly.
Yeah.
To someone who wants to hear it, you know.
Yeah, I was super, you know, I didn't want to make this interview like controversy drama interview, but that article is one of the things that I'm like, damn, I've always wanted to ask like somebody about this, because it's been so, like, I feel like people don't really remember that article now much.
No, and that's a good thing for me. But for the few who do, like, I don't mind setting the record straight, because, you know, I just it did hurt me at the time. It was a long time before I could put my gold records back on the wall and be proud of what I did, you know? Right,
man. And like, yeah, I'm sure, you know, Matt Rubano wasn't excited to read that stuff either, you know, and
it's, you know, and Matt did a podcast a few years ago, and I think they printed it too.
Oh, cool.
It was the only one he ever did, and you'd have to search for it, but he did one where I thought really summed up how it was when I was in the band. He sort of told the story, and he's so good at describing things that I was like, I can't believe someone summed this up. Like, Matt, write a book right now, you know? And, but a lot of people trashed him for saying the things he said, because they looked at it as he was talking bad about TBS, but he really didn't say anything more than what we're saying now. He sort of, it's like, you know, you're using their words against them, you know? I just thought that what he said was no truer word had ever been spoken. So, it really didn't. It wasn't even about making them look bad. It was just sort of like Fred and them were so different.
Yeah.
That, you know, it was born to explode sooner or later. You know?
Right. Yeah. And I definitely, you know, want to reiterate, for the sake of this conversation, I love Taking Back Sunday. I'm not, you know, trying to throw anybody under the bus. I know I keep saying that, but I'm really not. I literally just, like, that's a real magazine, that interview that really came out, and, you know, so it's like, it's sort of certain, you know, and I don't necessarily agree with, like, the route that the band took in that article, but you know, it's still like, you can still talk about it and be like that, because that's another thing, is like, you know, you can still love a musician and they can have questionable moments that you don't always agree with, because I kind of recognize that, like, maybe at the time they thought that was the right thing to do. I don't know, maybe it was
that was the reason that I hit Adam up 2 years ago, was I just wanted to be no more negative things between us. I feel like if they could be like, hey, we saw Fred last week, and you know, we checked out his studio, or like,
right.
He's gonna, if I was reposting their videos or something, like as like a guy who's friends with them, like it would just help both sides
right
to have a good relationship. And
right.
And so I said, look, I'm not calling for any reason other than I want to be at least friends again and be able to say, because how many people ask me, do you talk to those guys anymore? And I'm like, no. And so, I wanted that to go away and not be such a negative thing when someone asked me, do you talk to them? I'm like, yeah, man, his kids are doing great. Like, we all have kids now. We're all grown-ups, and
right.
So I was very happy to reconnect with Eddie. He and I never, nothing ever happened where we wouldn't be friends now. And then I've never stopped talking to Matt, even after I quit. We kept talking, but I do then, but it meant a lot to me to get Adam back on speaking terms.
Yeah. So. Was that like surreal at all to talk to him for the first time?
Yeah, it was.
Forever? I couldn't imagine,
No, and I think it was for him as well. Because like me, like I went on to a million different things, but he's still in the same band doing the same thing. And so I think, my entry was probably more weird, but I just, just in case they thought I was sitting around hating on them, I just needed to be like, yo, man, like, I would come see you guys play. I actually secretly watched them at a festival that they played. I went over and sat on the hill and watched. And
how was it? Was it strange?
It was so weird. It was like, they're playing Liar, and I'm just like, well, this is crazy. Yeah. And I had like a hoodie on, so no, it was in the dark. So
you're like sunglasses,
Yeah. I did not want to get recognized in that crowd.
Yeah, right. That would be interesting. But that, even going back to the like the thing with that article, going back to that, it's like, maybe they felt those ways at a certain time, but you got to look at it as like someday at that, like it's going to be 10 years later. And now it's like you said, Adam and some of those guys are like, Adam and Mark have been in Taking Back Sunday the whole time. Taking Back Sunday is like, for all intents and purposes, those dudes like whole lives, right? Yeah. Basically.
Right.
And,
And
you and Matt Rubano were a very big part of that band at a very pivotal part in the band's career. So it's almost the kind of thing of like, I don't see why you would not eventually want to reconnect with those people again. And
I mean, like they went on tour with Dashboard in recent years. They went on tour with Coheed. I mean, those bands are like my boys, and it wasn't like, they like threw the match and try to burn the house down, but it's like I'm not gonna just die. Like I'm still gonna be in like art. We have so many mutual friends. Like let's not be weird,
Right, exactly. And you're not like a total asshole. You're not an asshole at all. Like, so it's like people, I don't know, man. I don't know. Not to harp on that, but it's just from my perspective, it's cool to be able to because I've always wondered. I've always just been curious about that whole, that whole article or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you. It may be the only time that I talk about it too, because I that's everything I have to say about it.
Yeah. And I don't want to re-spark it. I don't want to be the reason that anything gets re-sparked in any sort of drama in TBS world. Because if anything, I'm pushing for a lack of drama in TBS world. I'm pushing for, hey guys, let's talk about it, and maybe like
right. No, I mean no.
Positive.
I've attempted those things too, like a full makeup. But it's it's just hard, man. It's years of resentment. So,
Right.
But I think it'd take a conversation to get past it. You know, we just need the right conduit. So.
Right on. So anyway, man, yeah, I guess I don't want to keep you for too much longer. This has been an awesome chat. I don't want to just hang up right now, but yeah, I guess.
Well, can I just tell you what I'm up to this minute?
Do it. Yes.
All right. So I've been, we've been locked inside the past year, and I have a bunch of new music. So I'm putting out Color Fred songs. I'm going to be putting out one song a month for all of 2021. So it'll be 12 songs over the course of the year, and I'll have plenty of.
Oh, that's cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I finally have enough ready where we're going to start releasing them one at a time, and we'll do little, like the normal In the Shed with Fred stuff. We'll look into each song of the process of how it was written, how it was made, how it was recorded, etc. So fun stuff like that. Some music videos, maybe that kind of thing. A lot of live, acoustic type of versions. So, right on. But a new song every month, fully produced, and putting it out on the Color Fred YouTube channel, obviously.
Right on. That sounds like a cool plan. Is it strange releasing music now after kind of having been out of the game for a few years? Is it
well,
different?
I put out a song called Don't Give Up on Me about a year and a half ago, and that went really well. Nice. Because people could hear my sound coming back, and it was kind of exciting.
Totally. Right.
I had intended to keep releasing them, and we released 2 since then. One was Lost and Lonely, which I think is still pretty TBS-ish. Totally. And then this other one that was a new thing for me, where called Future Past, where I had fans and the like contribute to my song.
That's really cool.
There were 20 different people who sent in recordings of themselves playing tracks on my song, and I put all of them onto one song.
No way. That's awesome.
And then there's a couple other versions. It's like a little EP, but there were people from South America, Paris, France, the UK, all over the States and Canada that all contributed to this thing. And Argentina. Oh, a guy from Ukraine sent guitar tracks.
That's really cool, man. That's such a cool idea.
No, it was crazy. So I put that, I just said, hey, I put up a song. It was one acoustic guitar and his vocal. I said, add whatever you want to it. And I left some holes. I was like, fill in those holes. So like there was a pause after the chorus, and like I wanted people to like.
Oh, someone can add a drum fill or something.
Exactly. Yeah, there was a drummer, there was a bassist, there were like 6 guitarists on it.
That's
and
awesome.
Like probably 8 singers. There were some keyboards and like EDM type of people who put in like beats.
That's cool.
So more of that for 2021. But so it's not too weird. I do have a band now that I've put together almost about a year and a half ago also, and they're awesome. Like, and we went out with Eddie last year, and we actually played a few TBS songs.
I actually watched a YouTube video of that. It was like you, Eddie, I think it was like the Color Fred band, because it was some other guy who I didn't know singing lead.
Yeah, we had our friend get up too, so
it was cool. It was cool. Hearing you bust into what it feels like to be a ghost, even just through the video, I was like, man, this is awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, those are riffs I'll forever be known for, that I love, and I do miss playing them in a way. So
right.
So that was a fun highlight of 2020 for me, and back last January. And so I've been playing. I did have a day job for several years, and I left that last year, and so that's why I'm finally releasing new music again.
Right, totally. Because I guess just to zip through, you did the Color Fred for a few years originally, back like 08, 09. And then from there, it was into Terrible Things, which, funny enough, you know, I got into the Color Fred back in the day, but I didn't listen to the Terrible Things. I was aware of it at the time, but weirdly enough, I didn't actually get into the record until like a year or two ago.
And that's when I started becoming active again, was like, now that stuff's kind of resurfacing, thank God. And
right.
And do you like it?
Oh, dude, I think it's underrated, man. I'm like, this album is like, I don't know. I kind of hear that record as, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I felt like if Taking Back Sunday made another album with you, in my head, it would kind of sound like the Terrible Things album, maybe.
That was me taking everything I learned making Louder Now with Eric Valentine, and making it on my own. I had an amazing producer for that, who was very much reminded me of Eric, Jason Elgin, who was super talented. But he taught me a lot too, but I mean a lot, but you know, I'm very thankful to him.
Absolutely.
But that was Louder Now Part 2 for me. Like we were trying to like get to that level of production, and I think we got damn close.
Dude, when I hear the first song, that to me is like that's like the next opening track after like that's like what it feels like to be a Ghost, like the next
part two
exactly. Almost, yeah.
I mean, even the last song on the album is very similar to "I'll Let You Live."
Yeah,
and, you know,
right.
So it kind of like goes that way, and I mean, not that I was consciously reading my old material, but like that's how I always like to have the epic song at the end of the album, and I've always been known for that, even with Breaking Pangaea, and so
because you've had kind of like reoccurring guitar parts and stuff like through your bands. Another little Fred fact that I know about.
That's what. Yeah, you're in the know. So.
I know about that. So there's a song. Let me see if I can explain this to you. There's a song on Terrible Things full length, and it's called Lullaby, and it was a Breaking Pangaea song from like 2000, I think, on the first EP.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
And in the Terrible Things version of that song, there's a small callback to, is it Little Devotional by Taking Back Sunday? That comes in there for a split second. I tell you, man, I got into that record for the first time recently, and like I think I was listening to it in the shower, and I heard that guitar part, and I literally was like, what the fuck? Like, because it's so quick. It's so quick, and I was like, I know I've recognized that, but I didn't even know what it was for a second. I was like, holy shit, that's that other take. I don't know. It's so cool, man.
I know. That was initially a Breaking Pangaea riff that I put into a little devotional. I don't know if you know about the wedding dress one. There's a Breaking Pangaea song, and the chorus became the chorus to My Blue Heaven.
Yes. Yep.
So I like, I love that shit.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. My heroes used to tease that stuff, and I'll continue to do it.
Hell yeah, you should, man. Because I had like I was in the shower, and I had a rock and roll moment when you threw that in that Terrible Things song. So
thanks, dude. That means awesome. A lot. It means a lot just for you to listen. I mean, anyone that checks out my music, and especially if they're willing to share it, like I'm indebted to you, because I could make music and no one could listen to it, and I realized that. Mm-hmm. I was in Little Rock when no one showed up.
Right on, man. Well, I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. I guess maybe this would be a good place to wrap it up, maybe?
Yeah, man, I'm cool. I'm cool to go get some lunch, and I'm looking forward to this airing. And thanks again so much for the opportunity to talk.
Dude, thank you so much. This is a huge honor. Like, I've been so excited to do this, and I hope, I hope it was a good time for you. Like, thank you for taking time out of your day. I like genuinely appreciate it, man.
No, great getting to know you and everything, man.
So. Totally, man. Thanks for letting me nerd out about like emo shit.
That's I enjoy the memory lane part of it, and like just it's nice to be appreciated and to know that stuff you wrote coming up on 18 years ago what is still being listened to. So
right on. Yeah,
that's the thing that always will. That's why I show up to the emo nights. I go and guest at them because you guys are my people. You if you remember, sure as hell I'm gonna be there to be there with you. So
no shame in that, and it's it's just cool to see now looking back that it's been like 15 years since a lot of that stuff. It's interesting to see how it's aging and the real force and influence that it had on kind of culture as a whole, especially in the sort of alternative world, so to speak, and in the mainstream. It's cool to see how it has evolved and what it means now, you know what I mean, versus at the time.
No, and I thank the universe every day because I was lucky to be a small part of it. And so I honestly, that's why I still talk to people, because I love that, I'm just thankful that I got to be at, this much of it.
Right.
So.
I think, well, to me, you were a lot more than this much of it, man. I was, I don't know, I don't know where I would be without some of those records you were on, man. For real, not even trying to be weird. I'm just like, thank you for your contributions, Fred, for real.
No, well, thank you, seriously, and I appreciate it, man. So I'll see you around. I'm doing my YouTube thing as well, and
hell yeah, man! Sunday morning,
to get up there and watch all your videos as well. So our buddy Josh Eppard's a big fan of your channel. That's how I first learned about it. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's the man.
He is, man.
Yeah. I'm excited to see more stuff on your channel and whatnot. And I got a lot coming. I'm working on it every day. So as I know, you work hard. So. Right on. Yeah. If you ever I don't know, want to do anything else again, I'm always down or whatever.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, I'm gonna come up with something then.
We'll come up with something. It'll be really cool. Anyways, man. Yeah. I hope you have a good rest of your Monday, and thank you so much again for doing this with me. And
thanks, Julie.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, brother. See you later.
Man.